Hello, in this video segment, I'm going to rerun some of the sample program we worked on and we ran during the last week's class because it specifically is in the salary section of the sample code we wrote, and I kind of sensed there were some confusions as to how they are related, what to run, what not to run. So I want to just rehashing what we learned, and so at least get some clarification. If you look at what I did was I actually created a diagram to illustrate some of the command we ran in relation to the components within the salary system. Okay, so this is the diagram, and you've probably seen this before. We talked about in the class, right? So it is important to know on the left, this is the what we call salary worker, right? On the right is the broker. It just happened as we said, we are using RevMQ, but you could use others, but the recommended actually is RevMQ. Okay, so it is very important to understand on the worker side, you will invoke the salary worker by calling salary dash capital A, your project name space worker, and then this is just the logging options you want to tell the system, okay? Or actually, there's a unique case in the salary framework where if a task is actually a periodic task, which means you really don't need the broker to trigger this. So in that case, you actually do salary space dash capital A, your project name, and then you just use the word beat. I guess it makes sense, just the repetitive beat, right? So this is in essence, this is internally in the salary framework. This it would be equivalent of a broker. Basically triggers that. It just does a periodical trigger, right? Based on your configuration. So the important thing to understand is on the worker side, you always use salary command. Okay. Now, what's trigger of that execution of the task, it's actually from the broker side, right? The broker side, you trigger it by entry Python -m, which is your project name and the run task. As you can see, if you look at the source code, there always a module called run underscore tasks, right? So that's how you launch the trigger the task, and that gets sent through the queue through the Y because through the network if these are two, if these and these are sitting on two separate physical machine, and then it gets sent over to the broker, and the broker will pick up the message and then execute that task accordingly. Okay, so this is the worker. You do salary underscore blah blah blah, and then this is the trigger or the broker, which you just issue a Python command to launch that task. All right. So I'm gonna rerun some of the examples to further clarify some of the confusions. Okay. So now we're in a command line. I'm gonna use the periodical, the salary. Remember we talked about the salary workflow has four, actually more, but the four major primitives, which basically defines the different way you can create a workflow, right? So we did the four of these. One is the chaining, and then you have quart, chunks, and group. Okay, so I'm going to launch the worker first, because again, this is okay. So this is where we launched the worker, which is on the left. Okay, now I'm going to just use this. So we're going to launch the chaining. That's one of the the task primitives. So if you look at the chaining, right now it does add all of them together. So look at this. This is all it does is it adds the 4 plus 4 and then multiple by 8. Okay, and that's the chaining, right? You do the 8 and then you add, and then you do multiply. Okay, so that's what the result is. Now we can do another one, is the chunk. Chunk is basically given 100 number in the code. It does is give 100 number digits, and then it slices into 10 different chunks, and then add them all together, and then add all different 10 chunks together to get the result. Okay. So, and you can see it. This is where the 10 result is, right? One chunk, chunk 2, chunk 3, right? And then it adds them all together, and then in the end, it all add all each chunk result together. Okay, that's the result of it. All right, now, so we'll do a group, right? And if you look at the code in the group, and this is what group does. What group does is takes for integer from 1 to 9, it add each of them, each of them individually add onto their self together. Okay, so that's what the group does. So we'll do this. We'll issue a group. All right. So now that's what each of them add all together. So it takes the first is 0, 0, right? Second is 1 plus 1, and then 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, and that's the result of it. Okay, that's the group. The last one we're going to do is short. Now that's the one actually is the most most intensive one. The reason being is it actually per the definition of that primitive is basically add all of them together and then do a callback function, pass the result to the callback function. In this case, it's actually in the same as the group in the beginning, and then add them all together when it is done, and then feed this result to a total sum, and it will add them all together. Okay, so that's what core does. So that's what. Okay, so it does. If you see this, you will see the list of it. Now, that's the result, right? One of the things I somehow the way I brought up get confused with folks. Notice I did not. There is no flower in this. Okay. Now, what flower is used is actually to monitoring these tasks. So, if I launch the flower, notice I did all this without flower, but it'd be nice, sure, be nice to have flower. You can see it, right? So if I started this, I'm gonna start this just so at least the folks can see it. So now I started the flower, and then if I'm going to the flower to look at the right. So this is the flower management console. Remember now we're trying to run the task. Right now there's nothing because it was not started, right? So if I come over here, I execute a task just for, we'll just do the chord, okay? So remember we said that actually it first does the add, right? And then it does the add of all these, right? It does the add for initial number and then add them all together. So if I run this, you should see the task here, okay? So, right, so now if I just do refresh, look at this. So you see this? This is the last one, right? It's the total sum. It's the total sum, okay? You see the argument? It passed over from the previous result of it, right? Okay, and then these are the each of the result, 9, 8, right? The result of it. You see this? Right? The each tasks. Okay? And the lock is used to make sure all of them addition are done before it passes to the next one. Okay? That's the result 90. So this is what Celery is used for. You can see the result of it because, like I said here, if you look at the chord, right? So it added to it. Each of the add, and then once it's add, then it calls this, right? The Celery, the flower management portal shows you exactly what the sequence of it is, okay? And each of the result between each operations, okay? So, thanks.